What is happening, everybody? MG here. MG Covers bringing you a brand new sports handicapping video. Title of this video: Biggest Mistake Sharps Make When Handicapping. Super fascinating, super educational. I'm going to give you two examples. I'm going to give you one example I found on Twitter over the weekend. Also share a personal example and a huge mistake I made. So you'll get a ton of value out of this video. If you're watching this video for the first time, greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Had a ton of growth. Greatly appreciate that. It helps the channel grow, as you know. And if you want to follow me on social media, MGCovers, covers spelled with a Z. Give out a ton of content on Instagram, so you get a lot of value by subscribing and follow me without spending a single dime. All right. So one of the biggest mistakes I see the general public make, as well as sharps make, is not incorporating statistical properties into their handicapping. I've had a ton of debates with people on this subject, some with people that aren't sharps and some people that are like legit sharps, especially when it comes to NFL. So let's first define what statistical properties are. That is a term that I made up to define a fact about a sport. So statistical properties are facts about that sport. Let's give one example, and this is the one people have a hard time with. NFL, very popular sport, right? A statistical property of NFL is favorites only win 50% of the time. This year it was 51%. The previous year, so 2 years ago, they only won 45% of the time. So application of that, if you play a majority of favorites in NFL, you will lose. So therefore, if favorites basically only win or cover 50% of the time, that means underdogs win ATS 50% of the time. And this is an important stat that nobody talks about. Of those underdogs that win, so if underdogs win 50% of the time, they win outright 70% of the time. So underdogs cover roughly 50% of the time in NFL, and they win outright 70% of the time. So that means you should play, instead of taking the points, you should play on the money line, whether it's +3, +4, +5.5, because statistically speaking, you will win at least half of those. If you win half of those, you'll be more profitable than you would be simply taking the points. So again, this is a huge mistake. And let me rattle off some other ones that you need to know. And just for context, home favorites in NHL win 63% of the time. So if your model shows a home team has a considerable edge, you might have line movement in favor of the home team. You have some other situational angles in your favor, and that team is at home. That's a good wager. Why? Because statistically speaking, home favorites in NHL win 63% of the time. Let's say if you're going to create this NBA model and you say, all right, I'm going to be a contrarian. I'm going to play nothing but dogs in NBA. You will lose your you know what. Why? Dogs win outright in NBA 30% of the time. Favorites win 70% of the time. All right, you see what I'm saying? If you play an away team on the money line in college football, you only have a 30% chance of that wager cashing. Not saying not to play away teams on the money line in college football, but if you do, you better have a lot of situational angles in your favor. So understanding statistical properties, extremely important. So let's get to this example here. All right, so I saw this on Twitter. And kudos, this guy had a win a day, 6-3, 1.37 unit day back in the win column. Now, some of you that have followed me for any length of time will notice the mistakes immediately. And again, I'm not throwing shade on this person, but this is a great teaching point. So you notice UConn -11.5, Tennessee -10.5, Arizona State +5.5. Should have played that on the money line. We'll talk about why in a second. Kansas State +1, -110. Wake Forest money line -140. Should lay the points there. Wake Forest was -3. UFC pick -110. Baylor and Virginia both were +2.5. Should have played both of those on the money line. Mississippi Ole Miss money line -165. Should have played that one laying the points. The reason being that I just explained is that teams in NCAA basketball win also cover 80% of the time, right? So there's an 80% chance if you can pick the winner, they're gonna win and cover 80% of the time in college basketball. And I just did that video for NBA. If the line was 9.5 or less, teams that win and cover, it's 87%. So in essence, so let's look at this Arizona State game. So what he's saying is if he's playing Arizona State plus 5.5, there's only a 20% chance that he's going to need the 5.5 points. Does that make sense? Now, the Wake Forest line minus 140. So what he's saying is, hey, I'm going to play it on the money line because I don't think they're going to cover, but I think they're going to win. If you think they're going to win, there's only a 20% chance that they're not going to cover. That is a statistical fact about NCAA basketball. So, and this is important. So, what I did was I didn't show it on this screen. I should have. If you add all his numbers up, so he's laying 110, 110, 110 as far as juice, 140, 110, 110, 110, 165. His ROI 6-3, 1.37 is 13%. So again, that's pretty good, a 13% ROI. Now, if we look at this is what I've got written down. This is the correct way to structure these wagers because, again, teams that win in NCAA basketball cover 80% of the time. So if you feel like Arizona State's going to cover, there's an 80% chance they're going to win. All right, so UConn minus 11.5, that was a win. Tennessee minus 10.5, that was a win. Arizona State plus 181, you would have cashed that on the money line. Kansas State plus 1, that was a win. Wake Forest minus 3, they won and covered. UCF was that one a win as well? I think so. And then, of course, Baylor and Virginia, but also playing them on the money line, you don't pay juice. And guess what? In both of those games, the plus 2.5 did not help him. Baylor and Virginia both lost. Ole Miss, same deal there. Laying the minus 165 didn't help at all. Ole Miss lost, and of course, if they lost, they didn't cover. Okay, so if he wagered this the correct way, he would have went same deal. He went 6-3, but look at that difference. He would have been up 3.71 units. So basically gaining almost, let's see, what was that number? Almost gaining 3 full units there. I mean, that's crazy, right? So again, this is why, regardless of whatever sport you want to wager on, you have to know the statistical properties of that sport before you can place that wager. And you have to make sure that your wagers, you're playing into the correct probability. So really, if the Baylor game, there's a 20% chance that you're going to need the 2.5 points. There's an 80% chance that if they cover, they're going to win outright. So again, just logically thinking this through, do you want to play into a 20% probability or do you want to play into an 80% probability? You want to play into an 80% probability. And that's why I say I've gotten into a ton of debates with people on this when it comes to NFL, because what people don't understand is that when a team, you can go do this. If you're watching this video and say, I don't know if I believe some of this, teams that win an NFL cover 70% of the time. Teams that cover win outright 70% of the time. You can go research that on your own. So therefore, in the NFL, instead of playing +3, +4, +4.5, +5, you should play those teams on the money line. You will be profitable that way long term and have a bigger ROI. Of course, you'll lose some. How many will you lose? Probably 30%, because that's what the statistical property is. Okay, let's move on to another example. And again, the reason I say this is a mistake I see a lot of sharps make is because I'm going to show you a mistake that I made. Now, this is the soccer margin concept video that I think I mentioned this in a previous video. So this was a new model that we're working on for soccer. We tested it through 50 games before we wagered it live, which we just started this weekend. It was up 14.45 units, extremely impressive. So that's grading one play as one unit, right? That's the correct way to grade it. So that was just crazy. Huge ROI. I should have listed the ROI, but it's up 14.45 units. Now, the first day we wagered live, it was profitable, which was this day here. Yep. Now, I want you to look what happens Sunday. Okay, this right here, this is the money line, and this is whether it won or lost. This will be a win. This is a loss, and then that's the units gain. Loss, loss, win, loss, 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 loss. Saturday, y'all, it went 1-8. 8 losses, 1 win. And this was today. Loss, win, loss, loss. Huge mistake I made. And the mistake that I made was not incorporating the statistical properties into my handicapping. And I already knew this. What do we know about soccer? Home teams win on average about 45% of the time. Some leagues it's lower than that. MLS, Brazil Series A, it's closer to 50%. And then with the draw on the wayside, it's going to be somewhere between 25 and 30% for the draw, 25 and 30% for the away side. So if you go back and look at all these away matches, or if you look at these losses, away, 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 the one win we had, that was home. Look at this. Away, 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 away. So why did I have all these losses? I was playing away teams. So depending on the league, let's just round it off and say it's 30%. Every single time I was wagering the away side, they only have a 30% chance of cashing. Why? Because that's what the statistical property is of away teams in soccer. You can't, 2 plus 2 is 4. That is a fact. Nothing changes that, right? So this is why statistical properties are so important and to incorporate them in your handicapping. So in other words, I'm going to correct this model and I'll show you this in just a second. So if I'm giving somebody advice on this model, do you want to play into a 30% probability or do you want to play into a 45% probability? You want to play into a 45% probability. So if you scroll down here to the bottom again, I went back and ran the model just for away teams. All right, so you can see it was still profitable, 28 and 43, 7.47 units, but the ROI now is only 11%. That's what the ROI is, 11%. Now, if we just play home teams, check this out. 12 wins, 12 losses. So what is the statistical property of home teams in soccer? They win about 45% of the time. Boom, we hit 50%. That sounds right. All right, and by doing that, if we come over here, we were up 6.17 units, and that equates to a 25% ROI. So simply by adjusting this model to only play home teams, same concept, still playing only dogs, we're able to increase our win percentage and increase our ROI. So huge mistake on my part on that one of not of playing the away side where I should just focus on just playing the home team. So again, regardless of the sport, and let me show you this too. I'll go ahead and close out this video and give you the tip here. If you go to covers.com and you click on sports, click over here, NFL, click on league trends, it will take you to all of the statistical properties. Like league trends, or I mean, I just like using statistical properties because we always know what we're referring to. And you can see right there, against the spread, favorites 51%. So if you just bet favorites in NFL, you would lose. And you scroll down here, we've talked about this before. There's the overs. So if you play majority overs, In NFL, you would have lost because the unders were cashing at 54%. So if you just played unders in NFL, you'd have been extremely profitable. So regardless of the sport you wager on, make sure you know all of the statistical properties of that sport and incorporate that into your handicap. I hope this video helps. If you want access to all my power rankings for all sports and all my coaching videos, $50 a month. If you want access to everything I just mentioned, in addition to all of my personal plays, $100 a month. And instead of paying $100 a month, you can join paying the yearly memberships, $500. You basically get an associate's degree in handicapping for $500. You get access to everything on the website for $500. Link to joins in the description box. That is the best value. Like this video. Give me your thoughts on this, statistical properties, and talk to you guys soon. Peace.